Yeah! What? Yeah! I want revenge! No! Out of my way!
Don't call me needy! Ow, I'm scared!
Pencil wouldn't let me into her alliance. I want revenge! Yeah!
Yikes! Don't call me needy!
I want revenge!
Seriously?
What? What? Ha 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 ha!
Pencil, you're here! Now let's go super fast! Don't call me needy!
Yeah!
Pencil, you're here! Now let's go super fast!
Out of my way!
Ow, I'm scared! Seriously?
Ha 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 ha!
Don't call me needy! Don't call me needy! Don't call me needy! No!
What? Yeah! fast runner.
Don't call me needy. Oh no!
Oh.
Ow, I'm scared. Oh, seriously? Yikes! No! Oh, seriously? Ah! I want revenge!
Grrr!
Wow,
Don't call me
Needle!
needy.
She's such a fast runner.
Which is... Grrr!
This program was brought to you by Blocky's
Out of my
Funny
way!
Doings International.
I want revenge! Oh, seriously?
Which is... Out of my way!
I want revenge!
Yay!
What? What?
Don't call me needy! Ah! Oh, serious?
Ow, I'm scared.
Yeah!
I want revenge! Yikes!
Grrr!
Hey guys, can I?
Yeah!
What?
Out of my way! Grrr! Yeah!
Wow!
What?
Yeah! Oh, oh!
Yikes!
Out of my way! Ah! Yeah! 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 Ah!
Ow, I'm scared.
Ah! Yeah!
Zombie!
Welcome everyone to the grand opening of that game of touch.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
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 No!
Uh-oh.
Go!
Press the cat for a game of touch. Uh-oh.
Green bee.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Está Mimi.
Uh-oh.
No.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
On the wiener. Esto está
Uh-oh.
unique.
Zombie. Zombie.
Wow.
Zombie.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Green bee. Nope.
Uh-oh. Let's go.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Zombie.
You're out! Go!
Birds.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Birds.
Uh-oh. 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 Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Zombie.
Click the
Zombie.
cat for a game of touch.
Zombie.
Ow!
Uh-oh.
Ouch.
Uh-oh.
Birds.
Uh-oh.
Go!
Zombie.
Ow! All right, yeah, that's a pretty good job. Go! No! Ow!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Click the cat for a game of touch. Click the cat for a game of touch. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Zombie.
You're out!
Uh-oh.
Go!
Zombie.
For a game of touch.
Uh-oh.
Green bee.
Zombie!
Zombie!
Uh-oh.
Green bee. Green bee.
Uh-oh.
Zombie! Zombie!
Uh-oh.
You're out!
Nope. Green bee.
No, I'm not. Yes, you are.
Nope.
Zombie! 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 Zombie!
Green bee.
Zombie!
Green bee.
No, you have to try again! No, you have to try again! Zombie! Zombie! Zombie.
Nope.
Zombie.
Nope.
Zombie. Zombie.
Nope. Green bee. Green bee. Neat. Nope.
Zombie.
Green bee. Neat. No. Green bee.
Zombie. Zombie.
Green bee. Neat. Nope.
Zombie. Zombie.
Nope.
Zombie.
This Disney DVD is enhanced with Disney's Fast Play. Your movie and a selection of bonus features will begin automatically.
Alright, so here we are in front of the elephants. Cool thing about these guys is that they have really long fronts, and that's cool. And that's pretty much all there is to say.
In 1982, Atari released their version of Namco's hit arcade game for the Atari 2600. Like the original arcade version, the player controls the title character with a joystick. The objective is to traverse the maze, consuming all the pellets, wafers, within it while avoiding 4 ghosts. The game was programmed by Todd Frey, who was not provided any arcade design specifications to work from and had to figure out how the game worked by playing it. The finished game used a 4KB ROM cartridge. Given the popularity of the property, Atari produced 12 million units, which was more than the estimated number of Atari 2600 consoles sold at the time, anticipating high sales, which they got. So this must be a great game. Wrong. It's awful. As you can see, it looks terrible, sounds bad, and worst of all, even plays poorly thanks to the laggy controls. Man 4K started out as a challenge for the homebrew coder Dennis Debro to see if he could get a no-frills Pac-Man written for the 2600 in 4K and stay faithful to the original arcade game. Some sacrifices were made, such as the decision to flicker the objects at a rate of 20 Hz instead of developing a variable flicker algorithm. But I'm sure you'll agree that the end result is a million times better than the original crap churned out back by Atari in 1982. Atari 5200 port is a vast improvement of the original 2600 version. Not only does it look much nicer, but it also plays better and sounds pretty similar to the arcade game in many areas. Not a bad port at all for the time. As to be expected, the Atari 8-bit line of computers features a port of Pac-Man that's basically the same as the Atari 5200 version. Apple II fans get quite a nice port of Pac-Man that makes use of the composite color effects to provide us with a nice selection of ghosts. Actually, I was surprised at how nice this port is considering it's by Atarisoft. This is Pac-PC, an unofficial port that was released in 1995. It's a shame this was not officially released, as it's a bloody good version of Pac-Man, complete with sounds sampled from the arcade machine. Oh man, even Atari's main rival, the Intellivision, got a better version of Pac-Man than the 2600 did, and it was even developed by Atari. Actually, there are two versions of this game. The core game is the same, however the Atari version has the Atari logo on startup, as seen in this footage, while the INTV Corp version simply has 1 or 2 player start screen. There are many versions of Pac-Man for the Commodore 64, but from what I can tell, none are official. This is probably the most playable version, however it's not the best looking. An official ZX Spectrum port by Atarisoft, and it's complete crap. The character's movement is jerky, the sound is headache inducing, and it slows down. Not a good port at all. The Amstrad, just like the C64, has no official port of Pac-Man. Again, there are many clones, with this French one from 1988 being rather popular. Famicom would receive an official port from Namco, and as you'd expect, it's rather good. Namco again brought Game Boy fans a nice port, however, due to the screen resolution of the Game Boy, the whole maze can no longer fit onto the screen. So what we end up with is a maze that scrolls. Still, this doesn't affect the gameplay that much, if at all. The Game Boy Color port is identical to the Game Boy original version, but now in color. It comes complete with Pack Attack, which is a nice bonus. Namco again with the portable port, this time on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Just like with the Game Boy port, you have a maze that scrolls, but we also now get the full maze mode. While the graphics do look chunky, it is better to play. Sadly, the controls on this port seem a little twitchy. Yet another portable port by Namco, this time on the Game Gear. More scrolling maze action, but the best we've seen so far. There's even a cool stereo effect when you lose a life. The port graces the MSX. Sure, it's a little more basic than the arcade machine, but it plays really well and sounds pretty authentic. And here we have the unreleased prototype of Pac-Man for the ColecoVision. As you can see, it's very much like the Atari 5200 port, which was also by Atarisoft. Another reasonable port here, this time for the BBC Micro. Actually, I have to admit that this is better than I expected it to be. Now here's one I bet many of you didn't know about. Back in the days of SNES backup devices, there were many cracking groups, some of which also made games. Here's one such example, a really fast and tough version of Pac-Man. Of course, totally unlicensed. And keeping with the unofficial ports, here's one for the Atari ST. Strangely, they've decided to go with the scrolling screen mode to keep the resolution higher. It's pretty good too, however a little slow. Here we go with a version of Pac-Man I bet many wanted to see. It's the Coleco tabletop version, officially licensed by Namco. I never had this as a kid, so I don't have any attachment to it, so looking at it these days, it seems, well, not so good. I did play many games of this type back in the 80s, so I'm no stranger to the style, but what puts me off this is the odd ghost shape wrapped around Pac-Man's face. It just creeps me out. Yet another licensed Pac-Man tabletop game, but this time by Tomy. This one uses a very odd screen layout. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't because Tomy had a load of parts left over from another game project. Still, we can tell this is Pac-Man, and as an added bonus, it does have the official jingle before the game starts. The big question is though, does it play better than the Coleco version? Maybe not. You see, In this game, you can only eat power pellets if you walk into them with your mouth. Reversing over them will not allow you to pick anything up. I understand the reason, but from a gameplay point of view, it's pretty dumb. And finally, just for a bit of a laugh, here's the officially licensed Google Pac-Man logo that appeared on May 21st, 2010. Surprisingly, this played really well. Pac-Man is the second game in the Pac-Man series. The game was developed by Illinois-based Midway Manufacturing, the North American distributor of the original Pac-Man, without the involvement or permission of Pac-Man's creator, Namco. It's surprising that they got away with it. Ms. Pac-Man was originally conceived as an enhanced kit for Pac-Man, called Crazy Auto, vastly superior to the original Pac-Man on the 2600. Atari Soft actually had learned from their mistakes with the original. While this is basic looking, it has far less flicker than the original game, plays better, and even has an attract sequence. Looking better than the 2600 port, this 5200 version seems to play a little slower. It's funny how many ports on the 5200 are inferior to the 2600 in terms of playability. Still, at least this one has the intermission screens. A noticeable improvement over the 5200 port here with the 7800 port. It plays fast, sounds good, and of course, keeps the intermission screens. As with most Atari 8-bit home computer ports, this is basically the 5200 version. I wonder if the programmer of the Commodore VIC-20 port was deaf. I ask this because no one in their right mind who could hear would have that awful constant bleeping sound going on throughout the entire game. It's awful! As for the actual game, well, it's a little slow and, to be honest, quite sluggish to play. I'm really liking this Atari Soft port to the Commodore 64. It plays really well, sounds good, and has the intermission screens. Be aware that the NTSC version will play in PAL mode at the correct speed, but the music is slower. Atari Soft games on the ZX Spectrum normally aren't very good. Ms. Pac-Man is no exception to that rule. What is it with Atari Soft and the ZX Spectrum? Did they purposely set out to make turd ports for the system? Old IBM PC Ms. Pac-Man gives the choice of using either RGB graphics, which you are seeing here, or composite graphics. Sadly, I can't capture the composite mode, but I can tell you that it looks nicer than this. I think a special mention must go to the audio. It's pretty good considering it's all coming from the PC bleeper. Oh my god! If you want to give your kids nightmares, you make them play Ms. Pac-Man on the Apple II. The sound on this is terrifying. It's like listening to possessed Daleks from Doctor Who. As for the game, well, it's pretty much identical to the MS-DOS version we just looked at. Ms. Pac-Man also made its way to the TI-99, and as you can see, it's not too bad at all. The game plays as you'd expect it to play, and it sounds reasonably well. There's not much more to say really, except it's another game for your TI-99. The Coleco tabletop game is basically the exact same idea that they used for their Pac-Man tabletop game. There is the addition of the bouncing fruit, but besides that, it's practically the same as the Pac-Man in terms of looks and playability. A fairly nice port right here on the Atari Lynx. It does look quite pixelated on the big screen, but play this on an actual Lynx and you'll be a happy chappy. There are two official ports of Ms. Pac-Man to Nintendo's 8-bit home console. First up we have the Japanese official Namco release. This one is quite disappointing considering it is official. The stages don't follow those of the arcade all that well, and it is lacking in options. The sound and graphics are fairly nice, mind you. The Westcott Tengen's unofficial port, surprisingly the Amstrad CPC version, isn't a direct port of the ZX Spectrum version, which is often the case. While it is technically the same game, at least this time the programmers have made some use of the CPC's power and given the game a bit of colour. Unfortunately, it plays really slow, making it quite a bore to play. The Atari ST version of Pac-Land looks okay in stills, but in motion it is really bad. As you can see, the scrolling is incredibly jerky, but that's not the main problem with this version. The main problem is the character pretty much lives on the moon. Yes, that's right. The jumping controls are terrible, they're extremely floaty. Not to mention the collision detection is also very questionable at times. What could have been an arcade perfect port, and to be honest, what should have been an arcade perfect port, is actually a bit on the sad side. The Amiga version of Pac-Land is exactly the same as the Atari ST version, but now it moves a little bit smoother. Not that much of an improvement to be honest, but you know, at least it is a little bit smoother. But all the same problems that the Atari ST version had are present here. Same floaty controls and same dodgy collision detection. The Commodore 64 version of the game, while not looking as colourful as the Amstrad CPC version, is actually a hell of a lot more fun to play. In fact, I'd say it's probably the best 8-bit version out there. While it's not exactly close to the arcade game, it does resemble it enough to make you believe you're playing a little mini version of the arcade classic. Definitely another game that C64 owners can brag about. The Famicom version of Pac-Land is pretty much a joke to be honest. The colours are all washed out, which is probably expected since a lot of Famicom games do look that way. But the actual graphics are terrible. They don't really resemble the arcade that much. And the size of the sprites is laughably bad. I mean, could they have made them any smaller? Thankfully, at least it plays okay, but due to the way it looks, it certainly is off-putting, especially when you got the PC Engine version running right next to it. Oh my, I never expected the ZX Spectrum port to be fun, but there I was, really getting into this port. The excellent renditions of the arcade soundtrack really do make this one shine. Some of the best music I've heard on the Specky in a long time. Playability wise, this is also a winner, although some people may be put off by the strange slow scrolling on the vertical plane. Poor Amstrad CPC owners have been shafted again with yet another crappy ZX Spectrum port. This version is pretty much the same as the Specky version, but now runs slower, and Pac-Man is in yellow. The music may be better than the Spectrum port, but that may be down to preference. To be completely honest, I was expecting something much better on the Commodore 64, but what it seems like we got was another version based upon the ZX Spectrum port. On the bright side, at least this has more colour, although a little ugly in selection. Same can be said about the music too. It just sounds drab compared to the ZX Spectrum. Man, is this ST port ugly or what? It's as if the developer didn't really bother to make it look nice. That's the least of its worries though. Other issues include music that's too fast and laggy jump mechanics. In stills, this Amiga port looks pretty good, but once it starts to move, you soon notice one of its massive issues, and that is sprite flicker. Really bad sprite flicker at that. It's a real shame too, as the presentation and sound is all pretty good in this port, but that sprite flicker really can cause issues. Ghosts can disappear, power-ups vanish, and sometimes the bonus icons can't be seen. To add even more insult to injury, it has the same issues as the Atari ST port. Still, players who are not too good at Pac-Mania will still enjoy the Amiga port due to it being rather easy. I remember playing the Archimedes version of Pac-Mania back in school. Our computer lab was full of 8-bit BBC Micros, but we did have this one awesome computer in the corner called the Acorn Archimedes. We thought it was on par with arcade machines, and looking at Pac-Mania, you can see why. While this version is slower than the arcade, it's all there. looks great, plays great, and sounds, well, maybe not great, but good enough. The music is a little twangy to be honest. Still, a great port for a little knowing computer.
Okay then, I'm Steve Benway and this is Lemmings on the Acorn Archimedes. I've been sitting playing a few levels and doing kind of, well, alright. We'll just dig a hole here. Because digging holes is fun if you don't have to dig them yourself. And I don't, because he's going to dig it for me, because he's a lemming and that's what they do. They can't think for themselves, they're just little computer graphics. So, but it's cool. It's a very fun game if you're the kind of megalomaniacal, that's it, yes, person who likes to control other little beings and explode them sometimes or make them fall off of tall things and watch them die, because you can. Okay, you need bashers here. Alright, we'll do a bit of bashing. We are currently limited on the kind of stuff that we can use. Yeah. Oh, that's not quite what I wanted him to do. Do that. There. Yes, you can make them bash through things or dig through things and just do stuff that they're not meant to do. If you're a cruel person, and sometimes I am, and I like to have them dig through floors and there's like, I don't know, a pool here that they will land in and drown, but I haven't got the controls to make them do that right now, which is a shame. Oh yeah, okay. There's me not paying attention. Go through there. Like that. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I probably want them to go through this instead. Maybe. Go that way. You kind of have to keep on them, otherwise they just wander off like blithering idiots. Get through there. There we go. I could, just to be cruel, have them dig through that, and that would be like nice and mean, because they would fall into oblivion, and oblivion can be fun if you're not the one going to it. There you are. Lemmings. Acorn Archimedes. It's not really very different from the Amiga version, if at all, except the sound is coming out of the computer instead of the TV. Maybe you can tell. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Thank you for watching. Oh, I've got to do this. Yes. You're going to die. Ah!
Oh, that was abominable.
יש לי זהה באישונים, רק מפסיד ונעקץ על ידי זבובים. איך נפלתי מהעץ, ענף פגע בי והפצע מהקצת, צורח מכלבים, נשיקה של צפרדעים, סוחב קרטון ביצים, נמעכות בפנים, נתקע לי נעץ, באתי בכך, ומחר נתחיל מההתחלה.
רק בסוכנות הרכב של לני תוכלו...
תלי! יש לי זהה באישונים, רק מפסיד ונעקץ על ידי זבובים. איך נפלתי מהעץ, ענף פגע בי והפצע מהקצת, צורח מכלבים, נשיקה של צפרדעים, סוחב קרטון ביצים, נמעכות בפנים, נתקע לי נעץ, באתי בכך, ומחר נתחיל מההתחלה.
MS-DOS version was developed by Novatrade, a Hungarian developer who are now known as Apollosa Interactive. I hope I pronounced that right. Personally, I don't rate this company too highly, although some seem to think their Echo the Dolphin games are great. Well, it's a shame we can't think the MS-DOS port of The Simpsons Arcade is great. Visually, it's not that bad. There's a good use of colours, and the actual graphic art isn't all that bad. The sound is pretty weak, mind you. The biggest issue with this game are the controls. Not only are the keyboard settings a joke, but even playing with the joypad, it is a chore. The controls are a little laggy, jumping is as if gravity doesn't exist, and the whole sense of actually inflicting any damage is just not there. Add in the lack of enemies and overall slow pace, and what we're left with is a pretty average port at best. Also by Novatrade, this C64 port is based upon the PC version. It suffers all the same flaws that plague the MS-DOS port. However, considering this is running on a Commodore 64, it's actually pretty impressive. In fact, I'd say it even plays better than the PC version, mainly due to the hit detection feeling much better. It's still not great, but it is better. What's most impressive though is how complete this port is. Most of the time, arcade ports on the C64 are severely cut back, but not The Simpsons Arcade. Next up we have the Atari ST port. Boy, we can see the ST was struggling at this point in time. What a half-assed effort of a port we have here. Not only do we have a game that plays in a tiny window, but also a game which moves like an MSX1. The scrolling on this port is terrible. That alone is enough to make the game unplayable, but it gets worse, because we also have to contend with ultra slippery controls. So yeah, this is one very poorly playing game. Some may say it's a very poorly sounding game as well. Now I bet you were not expecting this, James Pond 2 on the Commodore 64. The game was to be released on a regular box standard Nintendo, but it was cancelled, yet the C64 made it. Bizarre. So how is this version? Well, not too bad. It has reasonable graphics, parallax scrolling and good audio. Plays well too. I am puzzled to why there are licorice all sorts everywhere when the sponsor of this game is Penguin Biscuits, but hey, I guess they had more than one sponsor. And let's end with the MS-DOS version. As you can see, this is based upon the Amiga AGA release and is just as good. Getting it to run on a modern PC is a little tricky when it comes to the audio, so I've had to dub over the music from the Amiga CD32 game. Better than no sound at all, which is how I had to play the game. Zool Ninja of the Nth Dimension is a platform game originally produced for the Amiga by Gremlin Graphics in 1992. Back in the day, all the Amiga magazines and Amiga fanboys gushed all over this game, claiming it was the Sonic the Hedgehog killer. Yeah, right. You play as a gremlin called Zool, who is apparently a ninja. The aim of the game is to basically reach the end of the stage. There's no real reason to collect the amount of crap all over the stages. Hidden within each stage are mini bonus games, which is cool. For an Amiga game, there are some impressive points to consider. The game is full screen, no nasty small windows surrounded by an ugly border in this game. It's also rather fast, but that's about all it has going for it. Going against it are a million points. The controls are stupidly awkward when it comes to jumping up a wall. The game has a ton of slowdown. The stages take ages to load, like over a minute in some cases. And the stages are poorly designed, with unavoidable enemies, blind jumps and dull layouts. Zool hasn't got anything on Sonic or any other console platformer, and that even includes Bubsy Bobcat and Aero the Acrobat Squirrel. There is an Acorn Archimedes version too, but sadly I couldn't get it to load past the second disc. The title screen was as far as I got. The Atari ST version is a real sad sight. You can tell by this point developers had basically given up on the Atari ST. Just look at how awful the colour choices are in this port. The scrolling is also choppy and lacked parallax scrolling. The flashing image is due to a bad copy of the game, but still, even with that, you can see it isn't very attractive. Oh, and just like the Amiga, the music is off by default. First, it would seem that this Super Nintendo port is the best one thanks to its larger enemy sprites, but upon closer inspection it doesn't seem to be as refined as the Mega Drive version. I'm also surprised to see that this doesn't feature the introduction that was found on the Mega Drive game. In fact, I'm very surprised. As far as Zool goes, this isn't the worst of the versions, but it isn't the best either. Next we move on to the 8-bit console, starting with the Sega Master System port. This one moves incredibly smoothly and is quite colourful too. Sadly, the aim of the game has changed somewhat. Now you must collect 100% of items in order to finish the stage. I hate crap like this. I see it as a very lazy way to cover up a lack of ideas, especially when collecting everything is a real chore thanks to ultra slippery controls. So the first port came to the Super Nintendo. Now, as a teenager when this was first released, I always thought the SNES version was the best because, let's be honest, the colours and sound are way cleaner than the Mega Drive. But these days I know better. Yes, this is the better game in terms of looks and sound, but it plays like total shit. The Mega Drive original was a pretty shoddy game when it came to collision detection, but this version is even worse. Whoever ported this also took the liberty to increase the difficulty level and change the mystery balloons into death traps. So yeah, the platforming areas play much worse, but what about the RC car sections? Holy crap, these control really poorly. It's as if you're driving on ice covered in oil. It really is that bad. Even the 3D maze areas inside the claw machine controls poorly. It's as if your character is too wide to fit down the corridors at times. You'll find yourself sliding against the walls or getting stuck on corners. Oh, and I'm very sure this port doesn't even contain half the movie stills that the Mega Drive version does, and just like Mickey Mania, also by Traveller's Tales, this loads in stages. Yep, die and you'll find yourself looking at a black screen for 3 seconds. Terrible port, but will the following ports get worse than this? Is the Game Boy port, which has bad news written all over it from the instant it boots up. Distributed by Black Pearl, yep, a company known for crap, and developed by Teartext. Oh no, not the god awful Teartext. Well, we already know that this game is crap, but how bad is it? Well, it only lasts for 10 levels, so don't expect any of the cool 3D areas, or even the overhead RC stage. We only have the side-on 2D stages in this port, and man are they bad. The frame rate and speed is terrible. The game must be running at sub 30 frames per second. The controls are so laggy and so floaty as well. It's as if we are underwater for the entire game. I'm surprised at how well the graphics have translated to the Game Boy, but that is the only positive thing I can say about this game. Avoid at all costs. The third release was for the Mega CD. Unlike a lot of Western Mega CD games, this was much more than just a standard Mega Drive version with some added CD audio. Earthworm Jim Special Edition, as it was called, plays just like the Mega Drive original, but now includes extended stages and an all-new stage called Big Brute. The game has also been given a boost in animation, with an additional 1000 frames. There's also new stage intro screens, extra background detail, and a few little fixes to stage design. And what CD remake can go without an all-new arranged soundtrack? But wait, there's more. Completing the game on different difficulty settings will now award you with different endings. So, as you can see, this is much more than just the Mega Drive game ported to the Mega CD. 7 years after Earthworm Jim made his debut on the Mega Drive, Game Titan ported the SNES version to the Game Boy Advance, and oh boy, does it suck. There is so much wrong with this port. For a start, we are now zoomed right in on the action, making it difficult to see where the hell we are meant to be going. The controls don't feel right, there's slowdown, the audio is scratchy, and they've redesigned the stages. Oh, and what about the pathetic attempt at Andy Asteroid stage? Items falling down the screen does not look like items zooming down a warp pipe, Game Titan. November 1996 saw the PlayStation release in Europe. This port is also by Screaming Pink, just like the Saturn game, but isn't a patch on the Saturn version. For a start, it doesn't have any Jim animation at the beginning like every other version so far. Some of the graphical effects are missing. Stage 1 has no line scrolling reflection, for example. The game also has a different balance to the difficulty, making it a little harder. But what's worse is how this port plays. It is lacking the fluidity of the Saturn port. Everything seems a little sluggish to react compared to all other ports so far. I wonder if Screaming Pink thought, sod it, this is only getting a PAL release, so why bother? The Saturn version saw a PAL, US and a Japanese release. Oh no, here comes the crap with the Russian developed Game Boy Advance port by Super Empire, which came out first in the US on May 31st, 2002 and later in Europe on November 29th. This is based upon the SNES port, as are many Game Boy Advance games, but man, this is very poorly done. Just look at how choppy it runs. It's horrible. It plays like crap too. The controls are laggy and feel nothing like they should. The music is off key and sounds awful. Sound effects are out of sync or completely missing in many cases. How on earth this crap got a release, I will never know. Rayman was originally the idea of one man called Michael Ansel and was in development for the Super Nintendo CD. However, when the Nintendo CD project failed to appear, the development was moved on to the next generation of systems, starting with the Atari Jaguar. It's funny how one of the Jag's best looking games was also one of the first, and the only one made by what we could call a quality studio. As this was Rayman's first outing, the action is a lot tamer than later titles, and in this day and age quite slow, but it did show that the Atari Jaguar had potential. The game boasts a wonderful colourful land that the Super Nintendo or Mega Drive could never dream of recreating. It also features pretty large sprites for the time with fluid animation. Upon starting Rayman, there's not much you can do except jump. Additional powers are obtained during the game after completing every other stage. Such additional powers include a telescopic punch, holding onto ledges, grappling flying rings, using his hair as helicopter blades to glide, and running. These powers are granted to Rayman by Bettila the Fairy, while others are given temporarily from his friends that are used for specific levels only. With 6 worlds to explore and each being split into various sections, there sure is a lot to have you coming back time and time again. If not to see more of each area, then to find out where all the hidden cages of electrons are. There are 6 to find on each stage. Some are obvious to find, while others require a little more exploration. The second platform Rayman appeared on was the PlayStation. This port features many improvements over the original Jaguar version, starting off with a CD introduction, which is an improvement over the original stills. The in-game graphics are now even lusher with colour and extra graphical effects. Then we have the excellent CD audio, which really adds a lot to the gameplay. What was once a very good looking game and fun to play game on the Jaguar has just become so much better on the PlayStation. And on the Game Boy isn't exactly a port of the original game, but more a rearrangement of it. That's more suited to the limited hardware, and it's quite a good rearrangement as well. Controls are tight, collision is pretty good, and stage design works well on the Game Boy screen, without making you feel claustrophobic. The only truly bad thing that can be said about this game is how awful the music is. Still, you could always turn that off in the options. I guess the developers knew it was awful. The Game Boy Advance version was developed by Digital Eclipse, and we all know what I think about Digital Eclipse. As with most of their output, I can't help but feel this is a half-assed effort. The game is clearly based upon the PlayStation or Saturn games, yet rather than redrawing the sprites to make them fit onto the Game Boy Advance screen, they've just cropped in on everything, giving this game, like so many others, a cramped feel, and not being able to see enough of the play area at times. This really affects the game's difficulty, and I think Digital Eclipse knew this, as you start off with more power in this port. Gameplay is actually well done. Rayman controls great, but unfortunately the scrolling can be choppy at times, which does hurt the game a little. What hurts the game more though is the nasty gritty music that the Game Boy Advance is so famous for. It's one of the main areas that really puts me off the Game Boy Advance. But just like the Game Boy Color version, you can also turn off the music in this port. Rayman on the Game Boy Advance isn't that bad. It's colourful and looks nice on the Game Boy Advance screen. It's just a shame it has issues here and there. Now Frogger should be right home on the MSX since no scrolling is involved, and while this port does look reasonable and sound very much like the arcade original, it doesn't play like it. The biggest issue is the left to right movement of the frog. For some reason the frog takes little baby steps rather than a decent sized jump. Was this done to keep the amount of side steps the same as the arcade game, but to cater to the resolution of the MSX port? Who knows? While this doesn't break the game, it does change the feeling somewhat. Next is the Commodore VIC-20 version. Yep, this is probably as basic as the ports will get, but yet it still manages to play reasonably well. The jerky movement can be off-putting, but if you're able to cope with that, you may enjoy this version. Let's stay with Atari numbered consoles with the 5200 version. How it plays is a mystery. I couldn't get the bloody controls to work. Oh well, at least you can see it running. They say there are 2 versions of Frogger for the Apple II, one by Online Systems and another by Sega. Well, they're actually both the exact same game, and this is it. Yet another fairly good port. If there was one criticism, it would be that the little caves where the frog goes to are a little small. Oh, and also that the frog looks more like a spaceship. Oh my, what a load of crap this is. The VIC-20 may have been more basic looking, but at least it was playable, unlike this monstrosity on the BBC Micro. What on earth were the developers thinking? The road section resembles something you'd actually have to ride on rather than avoid. Not that you can avoid anything due to the incredibly laggy controls. They're totally broken. The BBC Micro could have handled a fairly good Frogger port, but instead we got this rubbish. Back to the competent port with this Commodore 64 version by Sierra. Looks good, plays good, and sounds reasonable. Not a bad port. Okay, let's take a look at some console ports now, starting with the Game Boy Color. This port was released by Majesco over many different consoles. It's a cheap looking port, but it plays like Frogger, so what more could you ask for? Mega Drive port here, which was also developed by Morningstar Multimedia and released by Majesco. This is basically a very close arcade port to the Mega Drive. Sounds, looks and plays just like its arcade big brother. Super Famicom time, and again it's developed by Morningstar Multimedia and released by Majesco. Now, where the Mega Drive version was pretty much a solid arcade port, this is more like some lame ass homebrew game developed over the weekend. It looks cheap and sounds bad. Thankfully it plays well enough, but why bother playing this when the Mega Drive version is so much better? Hey ZX Spectrum fans, does this look familiar to you? Yep, this is the same crap that is on the BBC Micro, which is no surprise when we find out A&F Software were behind it. Yep, same poorly designed stage area and same laggy controls. Absolutely awful. Here's another Spectrum version, this time from Terminal Software. This doesn't fare much better. In fact, this one doesn't even load right, meaning it's impossible to complete one successful crossing. Okay, we are near the end now. This is the PC version. This version is really old, making it very tricky to run on modern PCs. As you can see, it runs at an inconsistent speed. This wasn't a DOS game, but a game running under the PC's own OS. Welcome to the second part of Battle of the Ports, Frogger. In this show we'll be taking a look at some of the ports that were missing from the first video. There will still sadly be some missing due to being unobtainable, but that's just the way it is. So let's start off with the ColecoVision port from Parker Brothers. As to be expected, Coleco fans received a very nice port of Frogger. There's nothing special about it, mind you, but what is here is done very well. I especially love the face of Frogger when he gets ran over by a car. That did make me chuckle. One of the ColecoVision rivals was the Intellivision, and yeah, it's no contest really. Not only does the Intellivision look and sound worse, which is to be expected, it also plays poorly. The controls feel very chunky, as well as having a laggy feel to them. The game is still playable, but do you really want to play a version of Frogger with clunky, laggy controls? Do you remember the awful BBC Micro port featured in the first show by A&F Software? Can you believe this port is running on the same hardware? That's right, this beautiful port of Frogger came out in 2002, if the music copyright date is anything to go by. It's vastly superior to the crap released back in the day. We could even call this close to being arcade perfect. It just goes to show what knowledge and talented programmers can do with hardware. In 2016, the Commodore 64 got a much better version of Frogger than it originally got thanks to Digital Monastery. This version, known as Frogger Arcade, is just that, a very close replication of the arcade game, right down to the title sequence. This plays and sounds great. You can't get better than this on the C64. Here's a system we don't often see on Battle of the Ports. This is the Welsh-made Dragon 32 computer port, which is officially licensed too. What we have here is a very good version of Frogger. Yeah, Frogger looks more like a pond skater and the turtles look like tanks, but it's still a good version to play. Check it out if you're interested in obscure 8-bit microcomputers. Next up is the MS-DOS version, which can be displayed in EGA, CGA, VGA and Tandy modes. We are taking a look at the VGA mode. Now while this version may look and sound a little worse than the ST and Amiga, it actually plays far better. The controls are tight and feel precise, just like the arcade game. It also has more balanced difficulty settings. Unfortunately, my copy is a little glitchy on the orange blocks. Klax even made its way onto the BBC Micro. This version was programmed by a Mr. Blake. To overcome the limitations of the BBC Micro's colour palette, this version uses different designs on the falling blocks to make them easier to distinguish. Sadly, this doesn't help the game much. First of all, the blocks fall off the edge too quickly. It's as if there's a step of animation missing. The controls are also sluggish. Getting the blocks off your paddle is a right pain. You just can't get them off fast enough at times. This makes for some frustrating gameplay when things get heated. Also, this port lacks any variety in the background. We've just got the one, it would seem. To the more popular 8-bit home micros from the West, starting with the Commodore 64 port. Now you may have thought that the BBC Micro version was slow, judging by the footage. Well, this Commodore 64 version puts that to shame with its extremely leisurely pace. I'd like to call this the beginner's version, but I can't. Why, you may ask? Well, simply because the controls are rubbish. I mean, how can you mess up such simple controls? All we need to do is move left and right, but no, that must be a difficult thing to program. The Amiga and ST feel like you're playing on ice, while this version is twitchy as hell. At first I thought it was because I was using a joystick, so I moved over to the keyboard controls, yet the twitchiness continued. You can even see from this footage that I'm having a hard time lining up where I want my paddle to be.
Wave.
After the pretty shoddy Commodore 64 port, I wasn't expecting the ZX Spectrum version to be any good. But do you know what? It is actually a very playable version of Klax. Yes, it looks basic and slows down when things get busy, but it plays well. It even has a little bit of speech in there. Oh my god, the world has ended. The Amstrad CPC actually has the best version of a game out of the main 3 Western 8-bit home micros. Yes, it's true. Just look at how beautiful this looks. It plays really well too. Who would have expected this? Being an MSX owner in Europe must have been heartbreaking because all you ever got were shitty ZX Spectrum ports, which were pretty shitty for the most part to start off with. While in Japan, they were getting games that really made use of the MSX hardware. Anyway, this is a slow basic port of the ZX Spectrum game with only one background. Klax has the honour of being the last officially made Atari 2600 game to be released. Coming out in 1990, it's hard to believe this was actually a thing. As you can see, it's very similar in looks to the Game Boy version. It plays like it too. It's Klax in the most basic sense, with the Game Boy Color version. Okay, back with another Western home computer port for the Apple II, and all I can say is that it's complete and total shit. It's uncontrollable, slow, and has no music while playing. Truly awful. The Game Boy Color port was developed by the masters of no talent, Digital Eclipse. Yep, Digital Eclipse is another one of those companies that when you see their logo, you know the game is going to be poor. Marble Madness on the Game Boy Color is no exception. As you can see from this footage, it's impossible to control. No matter what control type you select, the marble goes wherever it wants to. It's as if it's connected to an elastic band at times. And then we have the audio. Oh, the audio. It's just pitiful. Also released in 1997 was Duke Nukem 64, a port for, well, I'm sure you can guess by the title. We have Eurocom to thank for this port. The unique feature in this version is a split screen 4-player mode, but sadly it doesn't make this the version to rush towards. In-game music was removed due to limited storage capacity, many items were renamed to avoid drug and sex references, and new lines of dialogue were recorded specifically for this version to remove profanity. That's what Duke is all about! There are some changes to several levels to include areas from the PC Atomic Edition, such as a Duke Burger outlet in the second level. Personally, the blurry graphics on this port don't do anything for me, and I find the controls to be way too sensitive. As you can see, I'm all over the place. This is not my favourite version by far. Well, Duke Nukem 3D on the most awful game console of all time, the TigerGame.com. As you'd expect, this isn't a fully 3D roaming around game like we've seen so far, but it is rather impressive should it have been a standalone cheap LCD handheld game. I actually had a little bit of fun with this one, despite the basic appearance and limited movement. Let's be honest though, this isn't Duke 3D, but a game based upon it. While the lead platform for Cool Spot was the Mega Drive, Virgin Games also developed the Super Famicom version, and boy did they improve it a lot. Straight from the title screen, we know that this is going to be better. Throughout the game there are countless graphical enhancements, from extra detail, translucent effects, different animation, and, for some, improved audio. But where things really shine is in the gameplay department. Many will hate me for saying this, but you can't hide from the fact that Cool Spot isn't a great controlling game, due to Spot's horrible uneven momentum, nasty snapping back style scrolling, and a slightly unresponsive controls. The Super Famicom port still suffers with these issues somewhat, but on a far lesser scale than the Mega Drive original. Even some of the cheaply placed enemies have been removed, and the whole difficulty balance tweaked for the better. Many a time the Mega Drive version of games made by Western studios are the better version, but not in this case. So the age-old argument that the Amiga is better than the Mega Drive when it comes to games. Really? I couldn't care less, but let's just take a look at Cool Spot running on an Amiga 1200. Yes, not a bog standard 500 that most people had, but the much more powerful 1200. So first the good points. We actually have 2 button controls. Now that is a massive plus point for an Amiga game. We have very good music that's way better than the Mega Drive, and for an Amiga we have sound effects and music simultaneously. These are all points we don't often see on Amiga games, but that's where the bonus points end. As you can see, the game is running with less colours, and the animation is slower. In fact, the whole game runs slower and jerkier as well. It really did make me feel a little ill at points. The frame rate is well below 30 frames per second and runs in a box in PAL and NTSC mode, which is rather sad when the console ports run at 60 frames per second full screen. So there you have it. Some very good points, but a lot of stinkers. And here we go with the Commodore 64 port, and while it's colourful, everything does look kinda squashed. I also don't like the way the music has changed, but at least it's not always stopping and starting like it should be. As far as playability is concerned, this C64 port is rather slow and also quite easy. Now this surprised me. The VIC-20 port actually looks more like the arcade than the C64 version. Okay, it is more basic in looks, but it just seems more faithful. It also plays a good game of Dig Dug. The Casio PV-1000 is a pretty obscure Japanese console that was released in October 1983. While it doesn't have that many games, 13 in total, it does have a somewhat average port of Dig Dug, complete with wonky sound. This is the first time on Battle of the Ports that we've covered a game where even the original is completely rubbish. What chance do the ports have of being entertaining? Quite a lot actually, but for all the wrong reasons. Pit Fighter was a game that left a very sour taste in my mouth about Western developed arcade games, which has never gone away. What we have here is an attempt at a realistic fighter, but what we end up with is a game that looks rubbish even when it was released, with poor controls and very questionable collision detection. Oh, and a fighter that looks like he's crapped in his pants. Oh my. The SNES version of this game is the worst of them all. The controls are really sloppy. So bad that they make the arcade seem like a master of gaming precision. The difficulty is way too hard and the game has no introduction at all. Pathetic, like all of THQ's SNES releases. Well, the C64 version is actually kind of okay to play for a Pit Fighter port. No, seriously it is. That doesn't mean it's a great game, but at least it's kind of playable. Oh my. Now I applaud the programmers for trying to replicate the arcade look with all the sprite scaling and so on, but why on earth did they think it was a good idea to do it on the Amstrad CPC? The system just isn't fast enough. I'm dead serious when I say this game is 100% unplayable. As you can see, it's extremely slow. So slow that it's impossible to know if your button press has actually registered with the game. You'd be forgiven in thinking you're actually trying to control a rolling demo, it's that unresponsive. There are two official versions of Donkey Kong for the Commodore 64. This one was developed by Arcana Software and distributed by Ocean in the UK only. Graphically, it follows the arcade pretty well. In fact, it follows the arcade better than most ports, even right down to the name entry screen. Playability is also good, and yes, it does contain all 4 stages of the arcade version. The MSX port is horrible. It's constantly slowing down then speeding up, which makes the already poor jumping mechanics even harder to judge. Terrible port. I'm sorry, but the ZX Spectrum port developed by Sentinel Software is total f***ing shit. It looks crap, sounds crap, and plays like crap. Why the hell does Mario walk up the ladder so slowly? How on earth could they have thought this was worthwhile? Arcana Software, the developers behind the UK Commodore 64 version, were also behind this excellent Amstrad CPC port. It looks good, plays good, and sounds good. It also features all 4 stages. What more could you want? In 1996, Takara ported Toshinden to the Game Boy under the title of Netto Toshinden. The game is based mostly on the original Saturn version, but includes a slightly altered story and an early appearance of the character Uranus and Battle Arena Toshinden 2 version of Gaia. You are seeing the Game Boy version running via a Super Game Boy, which gives us that lovely border and some colour. What it doesn't do is enhance the audio or gameplay, but that's fine. As you can clearly hear, the Game Boy renditions of the original music are fantastic. The game also plays really well, far better than any other version of Toshinden. I'm not joking either. This is a lovely little fighter for the Game Boy. Oh my god, what a load of crap this is! For those who don't know, this is Toshinden running on the Tiger Electronics R-Zone, a console that was nothing more than an LCD game in red. And not even a good LCD game. This version of Toshinden has no redeeming features at all. It's totally unplayable, sounds rubbish, and looks as primitive as can be. I feel sorry for anyone who has bought one of these back in the day. Surprisingly, the Game Gear port is quite accurate to the arcade original in terms of level design. I do find Pengo himself to be comically oversized, mind you. As far as the gameplay goes, there's not too much to complain about if you like the arcade game. For those who didn't, well, you're not gonna like this either. Sega Saturn port can be found on the Sega Memorial 1 disc. This is pretty much a straight up port of the arcade game with not much else to talk about really. I'm also surprised that Sega managed to get the license for Popcorn for this port. Straight away you can tell that the previous shown Amiga version was indeed based upon this ST port, which explains why the Amiga version was so slow. This ST version has all the same issues as the Amiga, apart from it now runs faster. Oh, and the music is much better on the ST. It sounds much more like the arcade original. Oh my. The Plus 4 was the very first computer I owned, but I never remember it being this bad. What we have here is something that wouldn't even pass for the high school coders contest. All for controls, floaty jumps, and keyboard only controls.